My name is Masana. I have been told I can't say I'm new anymore, so I'm not new. I'm the old Director of Human Resources and Administration. I want to thank everybody for coming out for the Happiness Challenge, and I just want to thank our partners at FEEP and UHR for coming out to help us with this. We really appreciate that. We've had a couple people here, Ginger and Shertrone, who have done this before, and both of them talk about how profoundly it impacted their day-to-day life, both personally and professionally. So we're hoping that you can walk away with some similar type of impact. I just want to share with you one or two of my favorite quotes about happiness before we get started and turn it over to Mary. From Ralph Waldo Emerson, for every minute you are angry, you lose 60 seconds of happiness. I think that's very, very impactful. And then from Abraham Lincoln, people are just as happy as they make up their minds to be. And finally, from the Dalai Lama, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. So with those wonderful thoughts, I'm going to turn it over to you all.
I'm Holly Halberg. I'm with Employee Development and Training, and it was about 8 or so months ago that we did the Happiness Challenge for a large group of University of Virginia employees. And because of that, we're really going to roll this out to you at the Curry School. It's an exciting initiative. We hope you'll get a lot of positive outcomes from it. And I always like to welcome you to this day, and it is actually recognizing a woman that I knew named Emily. Now, you probably never met Emily, but I got to know her really well over her almost 100 years old. And Emily was an incredible force, despite the fact that she lost a child who was 12 years old and lost her husband when he was 58 years old and had 3 other children to raise. She recreated herself at the age of 59 and was a force that at her funeral, no one could, the place was packed and it was a snowy, icy October day. But Emily had this certain positive outcome about life. She was known for exercising every morning to Jack LaLanne. Remember Jack LaLanne? She would get there, I remember she'd go to the television set and do Jack LaLanne every morning. As she did it up in her bedroom, the chandelier in the dining room would be swaying back and forth that was underneath the bedroom. She loved to help others. Those less fortunate, she would always do random acts of kindness to those less fortunate in her community and beyond. She learned to play a Russian string instrument at the age of 82. And then she performed in a Russian orchestra at all around the community. I remember seeing her do that. And she loved to share her love of music and learning and joy. She even played water volleyball at her assisted living center that she lived in. She was like 85 years old, but I remember seeing her in the pool playing water volleyball, and she loved it. She made herself, she was in the newsletter that month for someone who brought joy to their life. She prayed every day. She sat at the kitchen table, would hold hands and say a prayer of blessing and gratitude. Now the truth is, Emily was my mother. And when I think about happiness and this day and this challenge, I always think about her because she was such an example of positivity. And every encounter she had, she passed on that belief in gratitude and love and joy and happiness. So we figured that she always said, she raised 4 children, and she always said if she raised me, she'd live to be 100. And so when she was 99 and a half, she slipped away. She wasn't in any pain or anything and slipped away. Her whole family was around her, and I just remember she still had that wonderful, beautiful smile on her face. You know, the wrinkles, the laugh lines, it was just such a beautiful memory of her. So when I introduce you today to this challenge, I want to recognize Emily, my wonderful mother, and how much she brought to my life and to the life of so many other people. And it was really because of these 5 keys of happiness that we're going to share with you today. So thank you.
All right, and I just love that story from Holly, because we can really impact our own level of joy and happiness as well as spreading it out to other people. So today we're going to talk about happiness and some different ways that we know. And I wonder if we want to turn down lights. Anybody have that capability? Thank you. Okay. So what's very exciting to me is that especially the last 10 years, they have learned a lot and studied a lot about how the brain works, and we've made a lot of strides in terms of positive psychology. So what we can take from that is some simple steps that can make a huge difference in terms of your life. And what we're going to base it on is, I don't know if anybody has seen this or not. If not, hopefully not, but it's a 12-minute video, and it's done by Sean Aker. Sean is one of the professors from Harvard who taught their most famous happiness course. It was their most well-attended course, and he's written the book Happiness Advantage after it. So TED Talks are, probably you guys are familiar here, but just in case, it's thought leaders across the world that kind of condense a lot of great information in a compelling way. And so he tells us, what I love about it, it's funny, and it gives research in terms of why is this information important and what we have to back it up. And he also creates a reframe for us. So instead of looking at the old way, which is first I need to be successful in order to be happy, which is the way we tend to work in this country, he is flipping it and saying first we need to be happy in order to be successful. So this is a big piece of understanding the space of self-care and putting ourselves in that space and what that does for us. So we're going to listen to the TED Talk first, and out of that came the Happiness Challenge, because he is challenging us to do 5 different things for 21 days, which is habit forming, and looking at the impact that that can have, because we can actually rewire our brain to do something different in that time. So just like brushing your teeth becomes a habit after 21 days, right? We just do it naturally, we don't think about it. That's the same type of thing that we can create in our lives with happiness. Okay?
When I was 7 years old and my sister was just 5 years old, we were playing on top of a bunk bed. I was 2 years older than my sister at the time. I mean, I'm 2 years older than her now, but at the time that meant she had to do everything that I wanted to do, and I wanted to play war. So we were up on top of our bunk beds, and on one side of the bunk bed I had put out all my G.I. Joe soldiers and weaponry, and on the other side were all my sister's Milos and ponies and ready for a cavalry charge. There are differing accounts of what actually happened that afternoon, but since my sister is not here with us today, let me tell you the true story. Which is my sister is a little bit on the clumsy side, and somehow, without any help or push from her older brother at all, suddenly Amy disappeared off of the top of the bunk bed and landed with this crash on the floor. And I nervously peered over the side of the bed to see what had befallen my fallen sister, and saw that she had landed painfully on her hands and knees on all fours on the ground. I was nervous because my parents had charged me with making sure that my sister and I played as safely and as quietly as possible. And seeing as how I had accidentally broken Amy's arm just 1 week before, heroically pushing her out of the way of an oncoming imaginary sniper bullet, for which I have yet to be thanked. I was trying as hard as I could. She didn't even see it coming. I was trying as hard as I could to be on my best behavior, and I saw my sister's face this wail of pain and suffering and surprise, threatening to erupt from her mouth and threatening to wake my parents from the long winter's nap for which they had settled. So I did the only thing my little frantic 7-year-old brain could think to do to avert this tragedy. If you have children, you've seen this hundreds of times before. I said, Amy, wait, don't cry, don't cry. Did you see how you landed? No human lands on all fours like that. Amy, I think this means you're a unicorn. Now that was cheating, because there's nothing in the world my sister would want more than not to be Amy the hurt 5-year-old little sister, but Amy the special unicorn. Of course, this was an option that was open to her brain at no point in the past, and you could see on my poor, manipulated sister's face conflict, as her little brain attempted to devote resources to feeling the pain and suffering surprise she just experienced, or contemplating her newfound identity as a unicorn. And the latter won out. Instead of crying, instead of ceasing our play, instead of waking my parents with all the negative consequences that would have ensued for me, instead, a smile spread across her face, and she scrambled right back up onto the bunk bed with all the grace of a baby unicorn. with one broken leg. What we stumbled across at this tender age of just 5 and 7, we had no idea at the time, was something that was going to be at the vanguard of a scientific revolution occurring 2 decades later in the way that we look at the human brain. What we had stumbled across is something called positive psychology, which is the reason that I'm here today and the reason that I wake up every morning. When I first started talking about this research outside of academia, out with companies and schools, the very first thing they said to never do is to start your talk with a graph. The very first thing I wanted to do is start my talk with a graph. This graph looks boring, but this graph is the reason that I get excited and wake up every morning. And this graph doesn't even mean anything. It's fake data. What we found is if I got this data back studying you here in the room, I would be thrilled, because there's very clearly a trend that's going on there, and that means that I can get published, which is all that really matters. The fact that there's one weird red dot that's up above the curve, there's one weird in the room, you know who you are, I saw you earlier. That's no problem. That's no problem, as most of you know, because I can just delete that dot. I can delete that dot because that's clearly a measurement error, and we know that's a measurement error because it's messing up my data. So one of the very first things that we teach people in economics and statistics and business and psychology courses is how, in a statistically valid way, do we eliminate the weirdos? How do we eliminate the outliers? So that we can find the line of best fit, which is fantastic if I'm trying to find out how many Advil the average person should be taking, too. But if I'm interested in potential, if I'm interested in your potential, or for happiness, or productivity, or energy, or creativity, what we're doing is we're creating the cult of the average with science. If I ask a question like, how fast can a child learn how to read in a classroom? Scientists change the answer to, how fast does the average child learn how to read in that classroom? And then we tailor the class right towards the average. Now, if you fall below the average on this curve, then psychologists get thrilled, because that means you're either depressed, or you have a disorder, or hopefully both. We're hoping for both, because our business model is if you come into a therapy session with one problem, we want to make sure you leave knowing you have 10. So you'll keep coming back over and over again. We'll go back into your childhood if necessary, but eventually what we want to do is to make you normal again. But normal is merely average. And what I posit, and what positive psychology posits, is that if we study what is merely average, we will remain merely average. Then instead of deleting those positive outliers, what I intentionally do is come into a population like this one and says, why? Why is it that some of you are so high above the curve in terms of your intellectual ability, athletic ability, musical ability, creativity, energy levels, your resiliency in the face of challenge, your sense of humor? Whatever it is, instead of deleting you, what I want to do is study you. Because maybe we can glean information, not just how to move people up to the average, but how we can move the entire average up at our companies and schools worldwide. The reason this graph is important to me is when I turn on the news, it seems like the majority of the information is not positive. In fact, it's negative. Most of it's about murder, corruption, diseases, natural disasters, and very quickly, my brain starts to think that's the accurate ratio of negative to positive in the world. What that's doing is creating something called the medical school syndrome, which, if you know people who have been to medical school during the first year of medical training, as you read through a list of all the symptoms and diseases that could happen, suddenly you realize you have all of them. I have a brother-in-law named Bobo, which is a whole other story. Bobo married Amy the unicorn. Bobo called me on the phone from Yale Medical School. And Bobo said, Sean, I have leprosy. Which even at Yale is extraordinarily rare. But I had no idea how to console poor Bobo because he had just gotten over an entire week of menopause. See, what we're finding is not necessarily the reality that shapes us, but the lens through which your brain views the world that shapes your reality. And if we can change the lens, not only can we change your happiness, we can change every single educational and business outcome at the same time. When I applied to Harvard, I applied on a dare. I didn't expect to get in, and my family had no money for college. When I got a military scholarship 2 weeks later, they allowed me to go. Suddenly, something that wasn't even a possibility became a reality. When I went there, I assumed everyone else would see it as a privilege as well, that they'd be excited to be there. Even if you're in a classroom full of people smarter than you, you'd be happy just to be in that classroom, which is what I felt. But what I found there is while some people experienced that, when I graduated after my 4 years and then spent the next 8 years living in the dorms with the students, Harvard asked me to. Wasn't that guy. But what happened, I was an officer of Harvard to counsel students through the difficult 4 years, and what I found in my research and my teaching is that these students, no matter how happy they were with their original success of getting into the school, 2 weeks later their brains were focused not on the privilege of being there, nor on their philosophy or their physics. Their brain was focused on the competition, the workload, the hassles, the stresses, the complaints. When I first went in there, I walked into the freshman dining hall, which is where my friends from Waco, Texas, which is where I grew up, I know some of you have heard of it. When they come to visit me, they look around, they say, this freshman dining hall looks like something out of Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, which it does. This is Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, and that's Harvard. And when they see this, they say, Sean, why do you waste your time studying happiness at Harvard? Seriously, what does a Harvard student possibly have to be unhappy about? Embedded within that question is the key to understanding the science of happiness. Because what that question assumes is that our external world is predictive of our happiness levels. When in reality, if I know everything about your external world, I can only predict 10% of your long-term happiness. 90% of your long-term happiness is predicted not by the external world, but by the way your brain processes the world. And if we change it, if we change our formula for happiness and success, what we can do is change the way that we can then affect reality. What we found is that only 25% of job successes are predicted by IQ. 75% of job successes are predicted by your optimism levels, your social support, and your ability to see stress as a challenge instead of as a threat. I talked to a boarding school up in New England, probably the most prestigious boarding school, and they said, we already know that. So every year, instead of just teaching our students, we also have a wellness week, and we're so excited. Monday night, we have the world's leading expert coming in to speak about adolescent depression. Tuesday night is school violence and bullying. Wednesday night's eating disorders. Thursday night is illicit drug use. And Friday night, we're trying to decide between risky sex or happiness. I said that's most people's Friday nights. Which I'm glad you liked, but they did not like that at all. Silence on the phone. And into the silence, I said, I'd be happy to speak at your school, but just so you know, that's not a wellness week, that's a sickness week. What you've done is you've outlined all the negative things that can happen, but not talked about the positive. The absence of disease is not health. Here's how we get to health. We need to reverse the formula for happiness and success. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to 45 different countries, working with schools and companies in the midst of an economic downturn. And what I found is that most companies and schools follow a formula for success, which is this: if I work harder, I'll be more successful. And if I'm more successful, then I'll be happier. That undergirds most of our parenting styles, our managing styles, the way that we motivate our behavior. And the problem is, it's scientifically broken and backwards for 2 reasons. First, every time your brain has a success, you just change the goalpost of what success looked like. You got good grades, now you have to get better grades. You got into a good school, now you have to get a better school. You got a good job, now you have to get a better job. You hit your sales target, we're going to change your sales target. And if happiness is on the opposite side of success, your brain never gets there. What we've done is we've pushed happiness over the cognitive horizon as a society. And that's because we think we have to be successful, then we'll be happier. But the real problem is our brains work in the opposite order. If you can raise somebody's level of positivity in the present, then their brain experiences what we now call a happiness advantage, which is your brain at positive performs significantly better than it does at negative, neutral, or stressed. Your intelligence rises, your creativity rises, your energy levels rise. In fact, what we found is that every single business outcome improves. Your brain at positive is 31% more productive than your brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. You're 37% better at sales. Doctors are 19% faster, more accurate at coming up with the correct diagnosis when positive instead of negative, neutral, or stressed, which means we can reverse the formula. If we can find a way of becoming positive in the present, then our brains work even more successfully as we're able to work harder, faster, and more intelligently. What we need to be able to do is to reverse this formula so we can start to see what our brains are actually capable of. Because dopamine, which floods into your system when you're positive, has 2 functions. Not only does it make you happier, it turns on all the learning centers in your brain, allowing you to adapt to the world in a different way. We've found that there are ways that you can train your brain to be able to become more positive. In just a 2-minute span of time, done for 21 days in a row, we can actually rewire your brain, allowing your brain to actually work more optimistically and more successfully. We've done these things in research now in every single company that I've worked with, getting them to write down 3 new things that they're grateful for 21 days in a row, 3 new things each day. And at the end of that, their brain starts to retain a pattern of scanning the world not for the negative, but for the positive first. Journaling about one positive experience you've had over the past 24 hours allows your brain to relive it. Exercise teaches your brain that your behavior matters. We find that meditation allows your brain to get over the cultural ADHD that we've been creating by trying to do multiple tasks at once, and allows our brains to focus on the task at hand. And finally, random acts of kindness or conscious acts of kindness. We get people, when they open up their inbox, to write one positive email praising or thanking somebody in their social support network. And by doing these activities, and by training your brain, just like we train our bodies, what we found is we can reverse the formula for happiness and success, and in doing so, not only create ripples of positivity, but create a real revolution. Thank you very much.
So what we took out of that was the happiness challenge that he puts forward. So we're going to talk about each one and give some examples, and then we will break up into teams. So why are we doing it in teams? So One is social support is one of the biggest pathways to happiness. You know, Dan Gilbert and different people have researched what are the different pathways. That's one of the big ones. From the Dalai Lama, he comes at it from kind of the kindness and doing things for other people. But the things that Sean had talked about are all different things that we can do to help cultivate happiness within us. And then what happens is also that ripple effect. So Lynn had shared with us a link just the other day, and they had done some research back in 2008, and they actually showed that when one person becomes happy, there's like 3 degrees of separation of happiness that happens. So a friend and a friend of a friend can also become happy. So it's a ripple effect, not just helpful for you, because you're feeling happy yourself, but that people in your circle and even outside of that can feel the effects of it. And they've actually researched it. So also sharing your goal, just creating a goal and sharing it helps you to be a lot more successful. And we thought it would be fun too. So, you know, really it's increasing your happiness level. Hopefully it should be a fun process that you can engage in. And we already heard that there's a lot of great benefits that you can have. A lot of people, what I find these days, are struggling with doing too much and then being exhausted, too much and then exhausted with all that we're asked to do out there. So this is recognizing that we need to first take care of ourselves and put ourselves in that good space so we don't flip-flop from either space here. And what we know is then we're more productive, we're happier, we're more engaged with the people who are around us, and they would much rather you be in a good space. Because if we went and talked to your significant other or somebody important in your life and we said, would you rather they take a yoga class or not? They would be like, please have them take a yoga class, because when they do that, they feel so much better and are a lot nicer to me too. So that's kind of the concept behind it. So happiness is contagious. So the gratitudes, again, this is so easy. I do this with my daughters at home just because we want to wire that happiness in there. So it's 3 new gratitudes that have happened within the last 24 hours. And we're going to give you a sheet that has all this on it. And you need to say why. So what I want you to do is just take a moment, turn to somebody next to you, and if it's not a natural thing, then do 3 people, and just say, what's one thing you're grateful for in the last 24 hours, and why? And just share it real quick. I hate to break up the happiness, but I want to make sure we get through everything. So how did that feel? To share gratitude, right? Okay. So what they've also shown, if you do this with your significant other, you know, so say before you go to bed, what are 3 new gratitudes? That after 6 months, your partner will describe you as more physically attractive. So some people may be like, my partner already finds me way too physically attractive, but just a little bonus that you have along with. So what happens is you start scanning the environment for these gratitudes each day. And then, so the other one was journaling your best part of today. Journaling tends to be something that trips people up. It is one of the most powerful things you can do and would highly recommend it. But what we do is we verbally discuss it. And we say, what was your best part of today? And people will say, you know, wow, that creates a lot of great discussion that I wouldn't have normally had. And it helps the people to kind of look for it. And my daughter will say, you know, oh, I have my best part of today, you know, because she'll just naturally be looking for it. And just as a cheat, if you do your best part of today, that's probably at least 1 or 2 gratitudes you can pull out of that. So it just helps right there. He calls it the fun 15, just doing something active, physically active. It can be walking, it can be gardening, it can be whatever, something that gets you moving for 15 minutes in the day, okay? And so doing this every day, it has the same effect on the brain as an antidepressant. You know, again, so there's 2 panaceas in the world outside of a good night's sleep. And one of those is exercise, the other is mindfulness, okay? If you don't want to take medication, these are 2 things you want to try initially that could be extraordinarily helpful. We're going to go to this in just a little bit and have an exercise that Lynn Kratz is going to do. She's actually a grad student here at Curry that she's going to lead us through, okay? But just letting you know, just a little bit of mindfulness goes a long way, and she's going to talk about that a lot more. Random acts of kindness. Again, we talked about the Dalai Lama. That's kind of his perspective of giving to others. If you want an immediate boost, do something for somebody else. That's what they always say. It can be super small. It can be just an appreciative comment to somebody. It can be an email, just thanking somebody in your support network. And I had somebody who did this, and she just wrote a thank you note to somebody who she was supervising, and they had been struggling, but then they had gotten better and done a lot better. And the person came up and said, thank you so much for that thank you note. He posted it in his cubicle and came back again and was like, did I say thank you to you for giving me that note? So just think about the impact of one small note had on that person's life. Okay? So 21 days, why do we do 21 days? 21 days is habit forming. Okay? That's what we know. If we do it consistently, so if you pick gratitudes and you start doing that for 21 days, your brain is going to start doing that automatically. Okay? So that is not a long period of time. But we have the team to support you too, because life will start pulling you away to do other things and get you off track. Okay? So, and just one thing you can do, because people are like, well, you don't know my life, I don't have time. So the gratitudes, under 1 minute. Under 1 minute, you can do the gratitudes. 3 seconds for this one. 3 new smiles, okay? So our brains don't know the difference, whether we're actually smiling for something or not. So if you just take a pen and you put it in your mouth, or you take your finger, hopefully it's clean and flu season, but, and hold like this, and you will smile. Everybody do a little smile right now? Okay? So your brain doesn't know the difference, and it will start to release the dopamine, and you will feel happy. And it can only do one thing at a time. So if you're kind of trying to get out of an upset place, again, I use my kids as guinea pigs all the time, and it works. And now all I have to say is, do I need to get the pen? And she starts laughing. So 3 new smiles. So in a place you wouldn't normally do it, in the elevator, in somewhere you wouldn't normally do it. 3 seconds. That you can, again, it will up your happiness level. Okay, and just thinking about what can make this easy, and the team hopefully will do that, and resources. So we're going to turn it over to Lynn for a mindfulness exercise so you can get a flavor for that.
So good morning. It's so nice to be here. I was thinking that one of the things that I was grateful for, and I just realized that as I was looking out at you, was how appreciative I am of the people in this room that have helped me over the past several years while I've been in grad school. So when I go to bed at night, if my mind is going crazy, I start thinking about the things that I've been grateful for through the day, and I fall asleep. So I know that tonight, one of those things is going to be the people in this room. So I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate that. So today I just want to talk with you about mindfulness, and can anybody tell me what they think mindfulness is? Have any ideas? Does anybody know? Yeah.
I don't know that I know, but I would say that it's a balance of awareness and focus.
Okay, so awareness, focus, balance. Yeah. So people like John Kabat-Zinn, Amisha Job, basically say that it's paying attention in the moment without judgment or emotional reactivity. So you're not tying a whole lot of your emotions into it. And that's it, pretty simply. But I want to tell you a story. A few weeks ago, I saw my brother. This was at Christmas time. And he knew I was going to be teaching a January term course, the J term course on mindfulness. And he said, Lynn, what is that thing you're doing on mindfulness stuff? What is that woo? You're doing that woo-woo stuff, that religious stuff? I'm thinking, this is my brother. He's a physical education teacher, has been for a very long time. And I said, Rick, do you remember when you were playing basketball and you were at the free throw line and you were going to try to sink the basketball in the hoop, and all the sounds of the crowd just kind of faded away? I said, that's mindfulness. He said, oh, okay. So he got it just like that. When I was an athlete growing up, I didn't call it mindfulness. I didn't have that terminology. I just called it focus. Or before I went in for an interview, or I was going to have a challenging conversation with somebody, I just tried to relax. Or if I was going to have one of my piano recitals, I just called that relaxation. Now, I would probably call that mindfulness. It's a little both, but that's what mindfulness can be. Okay? I'll start it. There you go. So have any of you ever felt like your mind is kind of like this glitter ball, like that, and all these thoughts and feelings and stuff going on in the day is like all the glitter that's going around? Well, the space in between is what we're going to be talking about. And it's nice if you can just relax just a little bit and focus just a little bit. So all those things just start going to the bottom of your glitter ball. One of the students in my J-term course had this quote. It was actually in the UVA Today daily report. But I thought it was a good one. It was worth repeating. So he said, mindfulness meditation is about learning to let go of those thoughts constantly nagging at you. Come back to your breathing. Keep it simple. Be mindful of all those emotions, good emotions, bad emotions. It's about learning to disassociate yourself from your emotions, not suppressing emotions, but recognizing that those emotions come and go and then letting them go. You know, and when I think about mindfulness, I don't know if you're like me, but when I first heard about it, I always think back to the 60s and the people going, you know, in a room somewhere. And those are always the thoughts that go through my head. And that can be for some people. I mean, some people, it is religious to them. In my case, it is not. The practices have been so adopted now that they are not religious. Or they can be for you if you choose that. But that's not what we're going to be doing. We're just going to be completely non-sacred. So the benefits of it. It helps you to recognize stress and then to be able to de-stress. It helps improve your attention, improve your memory, improve your concentration, and better communication with people. And it also, for me, most importantly, increase your compassion. You know, in the School of Education, we always talk about, no matter who we are, where we work, we always talk about caring for other people. We talk about caring for students and caring for each other. For me, there's a difference between caring and compassion. Compassion is just a little bit deeper level. And really not only putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but really trying to put yourself in their situation so that you have more an acceptance of that other person. And mindfulness can help you do that. So some examples are an intention meditation. And I do this, try to do this every morning. This is a great thing to do before you get out of your car. And basically what I do is I'll just sit there and think, okay, what is my intent for the day? Just today. But what is my intention for today? And I'll think about that before I step outside of the car. It's a really nice way to start my day before I go to school or go to work. There's mindful walking. So as I'm walking from my car into the door, I'm very deliberate in my actions. I'm paying attention to my feet, what's going on around. There's a whole meditation around that. We won't do that today, but if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to share that with you. But that's a really effective way to get from your car to where you're going, if you're going to the grocery store or wherever that is. Mindful eating. You know, I was in a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say, fortunately, I was by myself because this steak that I had was unbelievable. It was so great. And I was talking to the chef about it, and I said, what is that sauce? That is amazing. And he said, I'm so glad you mentioned it, because not very many people talk to me about how good the food is. And I said, well, it's helping that I don't have anybody to talk to, and I can really pay attention to it. But even if you're with someone, just paying attention to what you're eating. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a mother, and she said, my gosh, I spent an hour getting this food ready, and my kids just practically throw it down their throat. And she said, I wish they would just enjoy it. So she's going to start talking to them about mindful eating, really paying attention to that. And then there's the body scan, which is what we're going to do in just a minute if you're willing to. And it's just a really quick check on what's going on in the body, just so that you're real aware, because so often we go home at night and go, oh my gosh, my shoulders are so tense, my back is bad. So it's just a way of checking in with yourself, and you can do this sitting at your desk. You can do this sitting in your car at a red light. You can do this at home. You can do this lying down. We're going to do it in our chairs today, but a lot of people do it lying down. So there are a lot of different types of meditations. There are many, many, and these are just a few of them. Does anybody have any questions on these? If you do, if you think of some in the future, just let your group leaders know, and they can contact me, or you can contact me directly. I'll be happy to fill you in.
All right, so we're going to turn it over to Miss Shanna Packingworth, and she is our wellness coordinator, bringing our Zen together to let you know a little bit about the rewards you can get from completing this challenge and the different things we have out there to support you in your health and wellness.
For those of you that haven't met me, I'm Shanna Packingworth, the wellness coordinator. So you might get emails from me. Just a quick raise of hand so I know which slides pertain to the audience. How many of you are on the University of Virginia Health Plan, Aetna, not student, but employee? Okay, so good number. All right, so most of what we do is for employees that are on the University Health Plan. The reason being is only because it's fully funded by the health plan. So it comes out of your paycheck to go into premiums. The premiums pay the self-funded health plan, and that's, we're not paying, Aetna's not paying for this. It's actually you and your paycheck and your benefit premiums that pay for the wellness program. How many did their health screening and assessment this year? Great number, okay. So because I just have a few minutes, I want to let you know that I am happy to come speak about Who's Well, how to use the portal, how to get the biggest bang for your buck, earn your incentives, take advantage of the programs even if you did not do the assessment and screening. There's plenty to offer even if you didn't. So if you have a staff meeting or a departmental meeting, I'd be happy to come talk to your group in more in depth. But just a few snippets. I have a resource page and a spring calendar. They're out front if you didn't pick one up on your way in, so you can refer to that. But pretty much we offer a really robust, comprehensive program here at the University of Virginia. Prior to this, I worked for 150 corporations, Exxon, Chevron, IKEA, nationwide, and our program compared to those, I would say Chevron might be the only company that has as rich and robust of a program that we have here. So we're very fortunate to have that. We started with the screenings and the assessments. So if you did that last fall, you will be getting your $75, and then if your spouse on the plan did the same, that $75 will go into your paycheck, the first paycheck of February. It will be taxed. Everything that we do is taxed. We'll eventually work towards a premium reduction. When we get to that point in the 3 or 4 year mark, we will not have to tax, so you'll get the full reward at that point, which is a great goal in the future. So if you're eligible for the 75 and you did your screening and assessment, you'll get an email that'll give some suggestions on how to spend that money, just so that we're trying to be mindful of how we spend the 75 bucks, and if it's treating ourselves to a new pair of tennis shoes, getting a massage, that will come in an email to you the week before we get the payout. Again, if you did your screening and assessment, you're now eligible for My Rewards. You want to go to that portal. This is everything that you have is on your handout. And you'll start, this year's is different. You'll need to record and upload documents on activities that you've done to earn an additional $100. Last year we based it on claims from Aetna. It just didn't work. Some people got $100, they didn't know why they got, other people got $50. So this way, everybody has the potential to earn up to $100. We'll pay that out in August. So go to the portal, sign on if you haven't, try to upload a document. If you get a mammogram, save some kind of documentation that you had that. If you get an annual PSA test, prostate screening analysis, you can go upload that document. You can get an annual physical. Anything that we do pretty much with IMREC Sports through Who's Well, you can upload documents. For coming today, that's why we had you sign in. You'll get a $10 reward. It'll come in a PDF certificate, and you can upload that. Yes, you have to complete, sorry. You have to come back to the February 21st. So if you commit today to today's challenge, come back on February 21st, complete the challenge, then we'll send you a certificate that'll count as a wellness elective, and that'll be a $10 My Reward. And again, a lot of information, so just see me, email me if you have questions on the My Rewards. And then look at that spring schedule to know what kind of offerings we have. We have IMREC Fitness, 6 weeks free fitness if you haven't taken advantage. You can have 1 free fitness consult, 1 free nutrition consult, one-on-one if that works for you. We have a new disease management program that we did last year, but it was not as regional, so we upgraded our disease management program. If you have one of 150 chronic illnesses, you have access to a disease management telephonic nurse, and 9 of the conditions result in free medication and reduced copays if you fully comply with the program. So for example, if you're type 2 diabetic and you opt into the disease management program and commit your phone calls with your nurse, you can get discounted medications for that. I highly recommend taking advantage of the disease management program because we can help by lowering your risks for new conditions. You can work better with your doc. They're going to be regionally educated on UVA and Martha Jefferson and community resources that we have, helps with medication, and so try it out if you haven't. We have a new team challenge on January 22nd on the portal. So I urge you to get a team together and join the challenge. This one's called Around the World. Your teammates track daily steps and activities. And so really teamwork, and we talked about social wellness. So take advantage of that. And we have lots more to offer. Take a look at the handouts I gave you, and then just email me if you have any questions or would like to take part in something that I didn't discuss today.